1840, it's 8:33, and we have our Extension Wednesday today, and we have a new person. Gatlin Bunton is on the line with us. Hey, Gatlin, how you doing?
Doing great, doing great.
Doing great. Well, first off, I want to wish you and yours a very happy Thanksgiving. We hope everything is safe where you are at, and you're going to have a good time with your family and have a wonderful meal. But again, we all do it right now with a very safe conscience, don't we?
Yep, for sure.
Well, Gatlin's going to talk a little bit about some soil. How important is soil testing right now? I mean, we've got still some soft soil, but pretty soon we know that's going to harden up, isn't it, Gatlin?
Yeah, it's always a good time to take a soil test. If you
Mm-hmm.
can get a soil probe or a shovel in the ground, it's an okay time to take a soil test. I wanted to talk about it today because we are getting to kind of the end of the season where it's easy to do.
Right.
Once we get into December, January, start getting frozen soil, it's a little bit harder. But fall is an excellent time to take soil tests. We've had a year's worth of growth. We've taken a hay crop off of something maybe, and we can really see what nutrients we're missing, what we need to add back in, whether that's adding in some phosphorus or potassium, in the fall, or trying to get everything brought back up in the spring. So soil testing is probably the cheapest and easiest thing we can do just to know what we're working with as far as growing a crop of hay or a pasture or even crops.
I think one of the misconceptions about a soil test is somebody thinks you go take a shovel of dirt and you throw it into a strainer or something and send it off to the University Extension and say, okay, tell me what I need for my soil. But it's not quite like that, is it?
No, and I can't tell you how many times that most extension offices probably get a 5-gallon bucket of somebody's soil. They've went out and taken a single shovel full, and we've got enough soil. But the thing you need to remember on our soil tests is we're taking a picture of the whole field.
Right.
So if we only pull up that one shovel full, we're just getting a really good idea what happened where we pulled that shovel full from.
And so it's very important to take as many different locations of your field that you have. I mean, there's some that's going to be in a valley, some on a hill, and you know as well as I do the nutrient level of those soil tests is going to be different.
Exactly. So whenever we have something like that, it's probably a good idea to send off two different samples, one from the valley, one from up on the hills, just because they are so different. So when we take those, we want to take a bunch of smaller sub-samples.
Mm-hmm.
So borrowing a soil probe from the extension office is a good way to do this, and take 15 to 20 sub-samples per field, and then add those back together, and that'll be one sample. And that way we can get a pretty accurate picture of what's going on.
And then that way you can strategize how to treat that field to make it as efficient and profitable as you can, right?
Exactly. Some of our fields, especially some of our sandier bottoms, might have issues holding on to potassium. So that might be an area where we soil test, and we need a lot more potassium than we need those clay-covered hills that we've got on the rest of the farm.
Yeah, not a lot grows on clay sometimes, but you can, with the proper treatment, you can make things grow virtually anywhere, right?
Yeah, that's really true. It's if you've got the right nutrients, if you've taken a soil test, you know what you need to do. If you need to add lime, we can really make about anything grow as long as we're not trying to grow it on straight rock.
Well, we have a lot of those in Dent County. Gatlin, come on down and just try and grow something on a rock down here. We got plenty of them in case you run short in Steelville. Let me. We talk about and the reason we want to do the soil testing and we've seen a lot of people having very successful hay crops here in Dent County this past year. We had very good hay crops. But it doesn't mean this year's good and next year may not be as good. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that's really the case. We can have an excellent year and pull off a lot of nutrients. The average hay bale is pulling off a lot of phosphorus, a lot of potassium, and a lot of our other soil nutrients. So we had a really good year. We might not get that same yield next year just because it doesn't have the same amount of groceries to work with. So, again, if we soil test, we have the good idea of what we need to add back in.
Do you recommend taking a soil test every year at about the same time so you kind of know where you stand each year?
Yeah, so it's not necessarily required to take one every year.
Sure.
But if you're trying to get the most production out and you're really keeping track of what your soil is doing, it's always a good option. But when we do take them, we need to be taking them about the same time every year.
Yeah.
Just because we get a snapshot in time. So if we take it in spring, it's going to look a little different than it would if we took it right now, even though we may not have done anything different, adding fertilizer or anything like that.
So if you don't take it every year, let's just say, we have a very wet year, or we have a very, very bad year, we have no rain and it's extremely dry, those soil tests are going to show different numbers, aren't they?
Yeah, they'll show slightly different numbers. Overall, they're going to be pretty close, but you can see some differences.
Okay. So you know how to treat it for the next year, even though we never know when we're going to have a drought or excessive rain. You still want to be able to try and get the most out of your land that you can.
Exactly. And kind of the rule of thumb is to take a soil test at least once every 3 years. So that gives us a good idea, kind of lets us ride those fluctuations out, whether we've had a wet year or a dry year, and we really get a good picture of what fertilizers we need to add or how we need to adjust the lime for the next 3 years, and then we can take another test to see if we've made any difference.
And we all know that the quality of the hay that we get, how important that is for our animals. And I recommend a hay test as well, don't you?
Yeah, a hay test is really the only way we know the value of what we're feeding. We can have a good-looking bale, and it smells good, it looks good, but it might be pretty poor nutritionally.
Mm-hmm.
So a hay test is just like a soil test. We want to take a sample from several different bales that we're going to be feeding over the winter, and send that off, and we'll get an analysis that basically lets us know, hey, we're a little low in this, we might need to supplement, or this hay looks pretty good, and we might not need to supplement.
Okay. And the extension can really help you out in any way, shape, or form when it comes to the soil test and the hay test, and they can answer any questions you might have, right?
Yeah, so for Dent County, if you've got a soil test issue, usually you'll be calling me. I'm at the Steelville office, or you can go through the Dent County office, and they'll put you in contact with me. And for hay tests, either an agronomist like myself or a livestock specialist can help you interpret those or help you get those samples taken.
Right, and that's really, and you really need to take both tests, though, don't you?
If you're really trying to manage your best, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
You might be better off taking your soil test, right now, but your hay test, that's a good idea. Let's take that either right after we've baled it,
sure, or
take it right before we're going to feed it. So right now it's just as good as any.
Okay, very good. And well, we appreciate that information. And like you said, best to get thinking about it, because we're already talking about 19 degrees come Monday morning, so that ground's going to start hardening up pretty quick.
For sure.
Absolutely. All right, we have a couple of upcoming crop conferences and different conferences that are going to be going on that you wanted to touch on. So, Gatlin, I'll turn it over to you and kind of go through what we have coming up.
Yeah, so this winter we've got several things planned. Kind of the first one that's going to be coming up, this is on January 12th. It's a virtual crops conference.
Okay.
So usually most of our area counties in some way, shape, or form have one of these conferences. In Crawford County, we usually had the Forage and Beef Conference, but that's been canceled. So in conjunction with a few other counties, we're trying to get something put together. So this one will be January 12th. We're working to get some information out on how to log into that. It will probably be on Zoom, which I know everyone's kind of zoomed out if you're using that at all. But
that's true. That is so true. So that's on January 12th. What time would that be? Do you know at this stage?
This will be 6 in the evening till about 9.
Okay, very good.
And we'll be going through different things. We've got some stuff for the row crop producers just because we're hitting a lot of different counties, but we're also talking about pasture and hayfield nitrogen management. So that's a big thing. I get a lot of questions about that every year, and felt that we needed to cover that as well as some of our other stuff.
All right, very good. Any other conferences coming up?
So that's really the only conference, but we do have some other trainings coming up.
We always love trainings.
Exactly. In Dent, Phelps, and Crawford County, in late January, early February, I'm going to start having pesticide applicator training.
Okay.
And these are still being scheduled right now, trying to work out the exact dates, figuring out where we can meet and what kind of constraints those might have. But those will be put up on all of our extension websites, and I'll try to get something put in the local papers on that as we come closer.
And on the extension website here locally, I know Sarah will probably get that out and get it to us once you have dates, just absolutely good dates that we know we can use. All right, very good. Any other kind of trainings coming up?
Those are kind of the close ones. We do have some stuff kind of planned, but they're still all in the works.
Okay.
One of them is a food plot workshop that will be happening this March and April, but still trying to figure out the plan on that one and seeing how we can hold that.
Sure. So, Gatlin, I hope you can explain how different it is to do these courses virtually. And you talk about the beef and the forage conference that gets canceled. There's a lot of interaction at those conferences that you have where the producers get together and they learn a lot from each other. That's not happening right now, is it?
No, and that's probably the biggest thing about a lot of these conferences is just learning what your neighbor's doing or being able to talk through what you're learning from a speaker. It's been hard to kind of keep interest up because, there's some people that aren't willing to do virtual stuff or they don't have access to technology to do it. So it's been something I've been trying to keep everyone involved as much as I can, but you're exactly right. It's the social aspect of it, you probably learn just as much as anything from a speaker.
Yeah, and then, sometimes people on Zoom hesitate to ask any questions because you usually are muted during a presentation. And, when as an instructor, I know when I used to coach and stuff, you can always tell when somebody's not getting it and when they are getting it. You can tell in their faces and their body movements. And, you can play off that where you can actually slow your presentation down and then answer you can say, is there any questions? Because there are some, right?
Exactly. That's been a little bit of a frustrating thing is I usually like to really interact with the audiences that I'm presenting to. And with Zoom, you're just kind of staring blankly at a computer screen and hoping they're following along. And at the end of the presentation, if I get one or two questions, it's been pretty good. Usually, I can kind of pull out some questions, but I just don't know if they're really interacting as much as they would in person.
Yeah, and now let's hope that with all the vaccines that they're talking about, that maybe by summer we can get back to a somewhat near normal.
Hopefully, as soon as we can, I am going to start doing all sorts of in-person events just because there's a lot of people wanting them.
Well, I can imagine that. And, I know that there's been, a craving to get these conferences and different things back because, just talking to our commissioners, they have their Missouri Association of Counties meetings and stuff, and these are all being virtual. And they say they don't learn anything because they're all by themselves. They're amongst themselves. They got more out of the conferences usually by talking to the other commissioners and things of that nature. And that's why I know in these conferences, when these people who are beef producers, hog producers, when they're out there talking to each other, they get better information because this person's doing exactly the same thing they are.
Exactly. Because, a farmer knows more about their land than anyone ever will just because they're there every day. And they might have a little tip or trick that works for the guy that lives, 5-10 miles down the road that works really well that just no one's really thought about.
Mm-hmm. But the neat thing about it is the extension's there to help when there are some of those tricks that don't work without a little assistance. Maybe that soil test or maybe somebody goes out to their farm and says, maybe you might want to do some crop rotation, move this here and here.
Exactly. We're always there to kind of provide that extra bit of information. We're taking everything from campus, all that kind of research, and disseminating it out to the communities. And sometimes it works really well. Sometimes we've got to kind of be on our toes and help tweak it to make it work for the local community.
Well, Gatlin, we really appreciate you calling in and giving us some information. We're hoping that we can get this vaccine in and everybody can start getting back to normal. And I know you'll be looking forward to it next year as much as I think the rest of us would be. But we want to wish you and yours again a happy Thanksgiving and a very, very Merry Christmas. But also we look forward to reminding people that these services are available through the extension, either low cost or no cost. And it's amazing how many people just don't utilize them as often as they should. Isn't that crazy?
It really is. When I was a kid, I grew up in Phelps County. The extension, to my local community, seemed like that was where you took your soil test, and
Mm-hmm.
that was about it. But now that I've started to work with them, got more involved in college, it really showed me how much that we can do. It's more than just the ag side. We have a lot of different stuff, whether it's health and nutrition, and there's always something you can find help with at Extension.
If anybody has any questions about soil tests, or maybe about their content, maybe they've had a soil test done and they just don't really understand what everything is, can they give you a call?
Yeah, so I'm at the Steelville office, but
Mm-hmm.
feel free to give me a call. I cover Dent County and all the surrounding counties.
Okay.
And you can reach me at 573-775-2135.
Okay, 775-2135. Very good. Well, Gatlin, again, we appreciate you calling in, and it's our Extension Wednesday. We get a chance to talk to different persons from the Extension and the different things that they do, and we really appreciate your call in. I have not had a chance to meet you yet. Of course, nobody meets anybody anymore, unless we're looking at you on Zoom, like you said. But it would be a pleasure to meet you sometime in the near future, and get your feedback on some different things in Dane County as things start to get back to hopefully a more normal. But look forward to the next time you're in town. Stop on by and say hi.
All right, looking forward to it. Thank you.